You're listening to the Jōrni Podcast. Why does a single notification cost you 23 minutes of your life? Stay with me for today's fascinating episode. Hi, I'm Petra Brunbauer. What if everything we've been told about holistic health, healing, and well-being is only part of the story? Because thriving in today's world looks different than it used to. Here, we challenge the narratives, rethink what it means to become human, and explore how that shapes the way we lead, live, and step into our full potential. This is the Jōrni Podcast. Welcome to today's episode. Flow has become a popular word, yet most of us experience it only infrequently by accident. This raises the deeper question of how we can create the conditions where focus, energy, and momentum align on purpose. Stephen Puri is one of the few people on earth who has been a senior executive at 2 motion picture studios and also raised over $20 million in venture capital. He's produced the digital effects for Independence Day, which won the Oscar for visual effects. And in addition to his film work, he's founded 3 startups, 1 successful exit, and 2 failures. He lectures now on the lessons in sustainable high performance he learned working alongside some of the world's more productive people. Here is my interview with Stephen Puri. Hi, Stephen. It's so great to have you on the podcast today. I've been looking forward to getting to chat with you because we'll be talking about flow states. And I think that's a really interesting topic. And I think in the way that you are going to speak about it will be very different than maybe what people have heard of before. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I hope this is one of the more entertaining and actionable episodes because you're right. I'm very fortunate that having been a studio executive at a couple film studios and also raised over $20 million of venture, I've worked around a lot of really high-performing people, and I've seen which ones, like into their 30s and 40s, move to apple orchards to burn out and pick apples,
Yes.
and which ones are still at the top of their game. And there's some patterns there, and I love sharing some of the little lessons along the way. So let's do this.
Yeah, sounds amazing. And definitely, I think a lot of listeners can relate to that, especially in today's world. So tell us a little bit about your journey or your story, maybe the pieces of it that you feel relate to what you do today, and maybe also share with our listeners what it is that you do today.
Ooh, okay. The short version of the long story is I was born on the East Coast of the United States. When I was young, my parents were both engineers at IBM, software and hardware engineers. And if your parents are great ice skaters, you probably learned to ice skate when you were little. So I knew how to code. I went to the University of Southern California in LA, but not for software engineering, not for computer science. I was actually studying business and journalism and stuff like that. And USC is a fantastic cinema school. So a lot of my friends were in cinema and that was fun. But I had won a Watson scholarship from IBM, which gave me money for school and also guaranteed me a job if I wanted to earn more money as a junior software engineer. So I did that during school to make money. Here's like lucky break number 1 in my life. I was there in LA at USC when film became digital, when computers became powerful enough to manipulate the audio and the video, Pro Tools and Avids and Silicon Graphics hardware to make films. And that meant there was suddenly a demand for people who are not just creative, who understood film, but also understood engineering and computer science. And I sat in that little intersection of the Venn diagram. My career took off because it was like, hey, we need guys like you that could talk to a director about what should happen here, as well as turn around to an engineer and say, you know, how we could probably realize that vision is through a particle system to do this thing. I did about 14 movies producing the digital effects, like the computer generated portion of the movies. The 7, True Lies, Braveheart, like a bunch of stuff. And I produced the digital effects for Independence Day. We won the Academy Award for the visual effects. That helps your career. Everyone in the movie that works on the visual effects, it helps your career when your movie wins the Academy Award. And so Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin, who were the director, producer, writers, the 3 of us got along really well. So at the end of that, we started a company together to do computer graphics. raised about 15 million, which is not that hard when you just won an Academy Award in that field. And we did that for about 4 years. I ran that company, and we got a acquisition offer from a company called Das Werk in Germany. And we sold the company at about a 6x multiple, which was great because I was in my late 20s. I'd sold a company. In your 20s, when you think you're funnier than you are, or better looking than you are, more successful than you actually are, full of yourself. So I was like, oh, this is so cool. So I thought, what did I want to do next? I'd done all these movies doing the digital effects for them. And I thought the next step is, could I actually get a movie made, not just this little digital part of a movie? So I worked my way up that ladder, essentially working at Sony and DreamWorks and Fox. So I was an executive vice president at DreamWorks for Kurtzman Orsi. I was a vice president of production at 20th Century Fox, running like the Die Hard, the Wolverine franchises, stuff like that. And had a moment around Die Hard 5 where I was like, wow, every movie that I'm working on at the studio is basically a remake or a sequel, prequel, mashup. It was like, I'm going to end up doing Die Hard meets Predator meets Alien just to pay for the kids' college. And I decided to do something I thought was a little more meaningful, which was get back into the only other thing I knew how to do, which was tech. I was like, let's look for problems that I can solve that I think are more meaningful than, what tower does Bruce Willis jump off in Die Hard 9? And that is what led me on this path. I had 2 failed startups, by the way. Everyone focuses on, oh, you had this great exit in your 20s. But I also raised about 3 million for 2 other projects, both of which ended up losing their money, which was painful. I lost about $750,000 US, mine, as well as over 5 million of other people's money. And that hurt. I was very ashamed and embarrassed and like, oof. But the thing that really stood out for me was I was like, wow, along the way, both in film and in tech, I've seen what like the really successful people around me do, how they control their mental energy. They perform at a high level sustainably. And that led me in a sort of interesting series of events to, oh, what if we created a website that helped people get into flow states to actually do powerful work and feel better? And that's how we founded the Suka company. That's what I have done the past like 5-6 years. And that brings us to today.
Amazing. I love that arc that you gave us for your story. And wow, you've had amazing experiences, I think, on both sides of the spectrum.
It's a fun ride. It's a fun ride. Yeah.
I feel that shapes us in some kind of way, of course, when we come through these experiences. And did you bring a lot of this previous work, I want to say, all these things that you picked up as you were journeying through the movie world? Did you bring those into the Suka company as well? And how did you said you wanted to do something more meaningful. So how did you bring that into this new company?
I appreciate you asking that. I'll tell you a funny thing, because you had that great episode with Carolyn talking about flow states. And that is something I'm very passionate about. When I first experienced a flow state, I had never heard the term. I didn't know what it was. But my experience of it was, I live in Austin, Texas, the center of the United States. And I was going to San Francisco the next day where I was going to meet with my team. And I wanted to hack together an idea I had for a feature. Like going to Figma, I'm not a great designer, but I could lay it out to be like, what about this? And if everyone likes it, okay, you guys should go polish it and build it, right? So I get on the flight. It's Alaska runs that nonstop to SFO. And the captain's, oh, hey, sorry, the Wi-Fi's out. See you in San Francisco. Enjoy the ride. I started working. About 15, 20 minutes after we took off, we started descending. And I thought, oh, something must be wrong with the aircraft. We're landing in Dallas, like the next town over. They're going to tell us when we're on the ground, oh, the hydraulic thing, we have to replace the aircraft or something, whatever. And I looked down and over 2 hours and 40 minutes had gone by. And I had no idea. I also did not know if the drink cart had come by. I didn't know the name of the guy in the seat next to me. Like I was in this little bubble. But when we were landing, my designs were done and I liked them. And I was like, huh. And maybe you've done this, Spencer. Like I had prepared myself for, okay, get in the Uber, grab a sandwich in the hotel lobby, go up to the room and eat the sandwich while I'm finishing my stuff for the morning. I got in the Uber. I called a buddy of mine in SF. I was like, I have a free night. Do you want to have dinner? Do you want to hang out? And it felt amazing to be ahead of my day for a change instead of chasing my day. Later, when Stephen becomes more educated, he realizes that was a flow state. And man, I wish I had known about that in college. I wish I didn't know. There are a lot of times where I was like, if I could have recreated those conditions, how great it would be to be more in control of my day. And that means a lot of things to different people in different ways. Okay, get my work done in fewer hours or do better quality work or feel uplifted. But the bottom line was like, ooh, I feel like actually in control of my life today. That was really cool. That led me on a journey to say lots of smart people have written, have researched, have spent their lives on understanding flow, the neuroscience of it, the conditions that help you get into it. And we can talk about that. I heard your previous episode, and I actually didn't hear a really clear definition of flow and Mihai. So if you want, we could do that for 30 seconds. You want to do that?
Yeah, I think that sounds wonderful because we might define this in all different kinds of ways depending on how we understand it. So yeah, I'd love to hear that.
This is what I loved is that this experience, there was a Hungarian-American psychologist who died, I think 3 years ago now, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. And he had a thesis. He said, you know what? If you talk to high performers in different disciplines and they talk about the concentrated states where they do the thing that makes them famous, the thing we all know them for, right? Strangely, even though they are athletes and artists and scientists and inventors, they talk about these states in very similar ways. There's something to that. What's up with that? So he did the research, did the interviews, the whole thing. And at the end of it, wrote a book called Flow. It is the seminal work on this. It's why we call it a flow state. And he said the greatest thing. Lots of people I spoke to called different things. Michael Jordan has that famous quote, the basketball player, about when I'm in the zone, it's just me and the ball. Like the world falls away and I'm just doing this. He said, I chose flow because it was the most beautiful metaphor for what I found, which is we are all on the river paddling to move ourselves forward. But if you align your boat with the current, it carries you. It magnifies your efforts. And then that is what these high performers have figured out how to do and do it repeatably. That was a major unlock for me. And then you and I and everyone, we benefit from living in a world where people have built on that, the standing on shoulders of giants thing, been like, let's do a whole bunch of research on like, how does music help your brain get into that state? Ooh, how do you block distractions? How do you do this? And what Mihai said, and I know that a portion of your audience are like flow masters, and they're like, I live in a state of flow. I don't need to know anything. But there's some portion that's probably, I've heard about it. I know it's in the zeitgeist and it's becoming popular. So let's just say Mihai basically said this. I'm being a little reductive. He said, listen, the characteristics of a flow state are you lose track of time. You're not staring at the clock. You do your best work, often in a compressed amount of time. Distractions fall away. And he said, at the end of it, you can feel a sense of uplift or joy as opposed to a sense of depletion. You're not like, oh God, I'm glad I got that done. You're more like, wow, that was great. Okay, what else? What can I go do now? And he said, a lot of the people I interviewed have different words for their things with Einstein and his thought experiments. And Picasso talked about it this way and Jordan talks about it this way, like that sort of thing. But he said, the effect of it is it's measurable. Like you can, in an fMRI machine, you can put like a jazz trio in there. And as they get into improv, you can see the electrical impulses in their brain change as the like prefrontal cortex start to shut down. You lose that sense of self and you become more one with the work. And it's a fascinating read. So now you have Kotler and Cal Newport writing about deep work and shallow work, and Neer talking about distractions and how to block them. And I just thought, man, there's been so much great work on this. I would love every morning to get my work done in half the time and feel happy at lunch as opposed to pressed at the end of the day. But I don't really want to have 5 different, I don't want to have like my Brain FM or my Endel or my music app, and then my timer app here and my distraction blocker app here. And I was like, I'm not going to every morning start 5 things. I was like, I want one website with the play button. I click the play button when I start work and I do my work, and it just keeps me in flow. And that was the problem that I set out to tackle. And we are building it in public with members. We have thousands of members now, and it's just really fun to get immediate feedback. Things we're doing well and things that we screw up. You hear about it, right? That group chat, people are like, let me tell you, I hate the new color or whatever. You're like, sorry. So anyway, that brings us to today. And here we are.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. How exciting. And you touched on so many interesting things as you were walking us through this journey a little bit.
Where would you like to pick up? There were a lot of hooks in there.
Yeah. One thing I'm really curious about is I find that very oftentimes the reason we're not in flow is because we're looking for control. We're looking for certainty in what we're doing, which is interesting that you said when you were in flow, you felt so in control of your life. Isn't that an interesting thing that the very thing that we often try to chase, we try to be certain, we try to take control, is so often the piece that actually stands in the way of us coming into flow?
Yes. And you've done a lot of episodes that are around how we understand our own energies and our relationship to the energies around us. And the thing, to use that example of when I was on the flight, the thing that really struck me afterwards was I didn't really care about my environment. Like I had an environment, and keep in mind, there was no Wi-Fi. So that meant I wasn't getting notifications. I wasn't getting check your email, go check the news, doom scroll. Like a lot of that was taken away from me. So it's just me basically listening to music with a distraction blocker running called broken Wi-Fi, that sort of thing. And yes, you're right. I didn't plan that experience, but I appreciated when it was over that something magical had happened, something that I wish someone had told me about in my damn college days, I'll tell you that. And it led me to talk to a lot of people about their experiences with when they felt like, oh, this was a great day, as opposed to this a frustrating day. I mentioned before, it's how we named our company. It was really around that feeling of, oh, I feel in control. This is nice. This is different. I don't feel like I'm chasing my day.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating. And before we talk a little bit more about how we get into flow state, or purposely, let's say that, I'm curious also how that affects us physically, because I feel there are actually a lot of physical benefits also to coming into a flow state. We could even liken this a bit to coherence if you're familiar with heart math. But there are actually a lot of benefits to people, not just physical health, also their mental health and their emotional states. Let's talk a little bit about how that affects us, especially for those of us who have experienced burnouts before, have come to all of these extreme states of...
One can see that our hands are raised, right? Yes.
Happens as students, happens as entrepreneurs, it happens as parents. Let's talk a little bit about why we should even care about flow states. What does that do for us other than make us feel in control?
That's a great thing to talk about. And let me preface this with anything smart I say, I want to acknowledge that I am passing along the wisdom and the research of people who spent their lives doing this. This is not Stephen smart. This is Stephen wants to bring this to everybody. Okay. And let's also acknowledge that I'm not a expert on the psychosomatic relationships and all that, right? What I do know is I talk to a ton of people now over the past 5-6 years about how they do what they're doing, whether it's their day job, or they're like, I need to deal with the stresses of this, the stresses that are imposed upon me by my leadership, or whether they're working on like their side hustle or their own company, where they're like, these are self-induced stresses because I want to succeed. I want to have financial independence. I want to be with my family, whatever it is. I'll tell you this, the name of our company, the way it came was we had a working title for this. That was okay. And as we were getting more and more people coming saying, oh, I actually got into a flow state with this. I was talking to Laura, wifey, and we were about to go on our honeymoon. She was at that time, fiance, bride to be, then go on honeymoon. We met each other in yoga. Yoga is a daily part of our life. So where do you go for your honeymoon when you do a ton of yoga? We went to Bali. Hello, nice. We're traveling there. And I said to Laura, the one frustrating thing for me is I feel like we're starting to get magic. The people who come and actually spend an hour or two getting into flow, like they stay. People who come and hit play, they listen to music and they're gone 1 minute, they're gone. They never got into a flow state. You need 15 to 23 minutes to do that. But we're starting to see that magic. And I still have a lousy name for it. And I don't want to call it something descriptive like flow state app, whatever. Like Amazon is not called like bookstore place. Nike's not called like the shoe company. And I had some bad options that I thought of. And Laura said, good luck with that. Maybe in the next 2 weeks on our honeymoon, the office knows not to bug you. Maybe the muses will speak. The universe will come to you and give you some great name like Amazon or Nike, whatever, right? So we get there. And I said to her, you know what? I heard what you said on the flight. I thought about it. Maybe I need to have a more relaxed approach to this, not just make lists of bad names. What might help me is, do you mind if I just spend 10 minutes, talk to a couple members today and just ask them, what's their favorite feature? And maybe over the next 2 weeks, that bubbles up out of my unconscious. Oh, they love the smart assistant, or they love the music, or they love the timers, or whatever. She's, I'm going to the pool. but I will see you at dinner. Enjoy your Zooms on our honeymoon, buddy. So 3 people in the group chat said, yeah, I'll talk to you a couple minutes. So I did the usual thing. Hey, ask you for 10 minutes. What do you love? Do you love the scoring system that allows you to see if you're getting better? Do you love the music? The third guy, I'm going into the wrap up where I'm like, I asked for 10 minutes. I want to respect your calendar. Thank you so much. He said to me, Stephen, you asked the wrong questions. And I was like, okay, guy that I do not know that well. I'm super curious. What was the right question? He said, you should have asked me why I pay you. I'm like, okay, fair enough. You win. Why do you pay me? He said, I have 2 kids. They're 2 and 4. I found this past year that I've been using your early version of your site. I have 2 kinds of days. At 3:00, I'm playing with my kids. Or at 6:00, I'm like, where did the day go? I was busy all day. Maybe I'll get up early tomorrow and try and finish today's work before tomorrow's. And I realized the difference is, did I hit play in your Flow app that morning? So I pay you because my kids are not going to be 2 and 4 forever. And I was like, okay, you won that round. That was a way better question answer than what I was asking. And I appreciate that. I, of course, go to dinner and I'm like excited. I'm telling Laura, I spoke to this guy who's more articulate about what I'm doing than I am. She's, yeah, that's really good. So we're going to bed that night, our little spa robes, thinking we're cute little honeymooners, brushing our teeth. And with a mouthful of toothpaste, Laura looked at me. She's like, in yoga, we hear all these Sanskrit terms for prana, your life force, and your dharma and your karma. And she's like, that guy, he described you sukha, that feeling of when you were in your lane, doing what you're meant to do and you're good at it, you can do it with ease. He wants to be in control of his life. That's what he's telling you. He's not looking for a distraction blocker app, a flow state app. He's looking for time with his kids. And that comes because he controlled his day. He got his work done by 3. She's like, you should call it the Sukha company, the happiness company. That's what it's actually about. And I looked it up from our little hotel room in Bali. It was available for a whopping $14 because who wants a weird Sanskrit name? And I bought it. And I called my partner. I was like, hey, we have a name for the company, Sukha Company. Don't ask me about it. I'll tell you tomorrow.
I love
that ultimately is, I think, what it's about. It is about that feeling of being like, man, I would love to be with my kids or windsurf or whatever. I mean, I have a 13-week-old son downstairs. As soon as we wrap, I'm going down there to pinch his little cheeks, see if he needs a bottle, hang out with him. Like, it brings me so much joy. And I get that, but it's only because I am in control of my work now, as opposed to it just sprawling across the day.
Yeah. And I can say I definitely wish I would have known about this a long time ago. As you said,
we met now. You're still alive.
Yeah. I feel especially when we're younger, we're not really taught these things. We're not taught how to come into flow or how that can support us. They should teach this in school because it's such an important foundational piece of our well-being. I feel like we come to it very late.
I'm totally with you. So I know we have a very succinct pod and I want to keep this tight for everyone, but let me give you some examples of stuff I have learned after that day of like, why didn't someone tell me about this in college? One of the first bits of research you do when you start looking to flow is a lot of research on music, like your oral environment and how it helps your brain get there, right? There are some great apps out there, Endel, Brain FM, that all flow music, right? So when we were creating Sukha, before it was called Sukha, I was like, I happen to have a bunch of friends who are film composers because guess what I did for 15 years, right? And they have time on their hands. Hey guys, here are guidelines. Like a lot of the research shows the sweet spot for most people is 60 to 90 beats per minute, certain key signatures, non-vocals. You're not singing along with Blackpink or Britney Spears, whatever your jam is, right? My wife's is Backstreet Boys, no judgment, little judgment. And long melodic passages. There's a lot of stuff that says this kind of works for most people. There are always the outliers. There's always the friend who's, oh man, I listen to show tunes. It gets me there. I listen to classical music. I listen to 90s gangster rap. And God bless, if that works for you, being aware of yourself is really good, right? But for most people, it's this 1,000 hours of original music, right? All these different playlists we created, like lo-fi, daytime, up-tempo, down-tempo, like things like that. A buddy of mine who does the music, the sound mixing for the LucasArts games up in Marin, right? Basically Star Wars games. He calls me up. He goes, hey man, I just got back from Nepal. Cool, okay. He's like, yeah, it was my son's high school graduation present. He did really well on his exams, whenever got in a good college in California. And he said, so for his graduation gift, I was like, what do you want? He said, I want to go to Nepal. One day when we were there, it rained in Kathmandu so hard we couldn't leave. We couldn't go out. And it was this lush, warm, delicious rain. And I had some of my recording equipment there. So I recorded like 2 hours of rain. And I don't know what to, now that we're back, I don't really know what to do with it. Do you want it? It's like, you know what? Maybe, I don't know. So what if we just quietly in the app, we added a playlist in the middle. It's called Himalayan Dream Rain. And it's actually not music. It's just your rain. Okay, cool. Let's try it. Without announcing it, it became the third most popular playlist in the app. And I was like, what is up with that? We spent all this money and time doing this custom, beautiful music with these film composers. And rain is like this huge sleeper hit. I run the platform. I have everyone's email address. I saw some people are listening to it. I just emailed them like, hey, this is Steven. I'm the founder. Can you talk to me for a minute? I'd like to understand this. And people are happy to tell you. So I was like, help me understand. Why would you choose rain over all this scientifically designed, beautiful music? And it was interesting. If you were to reduce down everyone that spoke to me to one or two sentences, they basically said, you know what? Rain brings me back to a place in my life when I had to study or work or something. And it was a rainy environment and I had to be inside this. I lived with my grandma in Georgia. And at finals, it was always raining. My family has a lake house. I used to be living in Seattle. And it was fascinating the way it's just this mental trigger of, oh, it's pouring rain out. Got it. And my brain falls into flow. Of course, what do? You're the founder of this company, right? You go, oh, we should try other naturescapes, right? We tried a stream in Japan, the surf in Cyprus, whatever it comes. I'm going to be super honest. None of them were sleeper hits. They were like, hey, man, we got a couple of people listen to it. I was like, okay, whatever. But one of our members emailed me and said, I noticed you're experimenting with these non-musical playlists. Can I ask you something? Can I ask a favor? And she's a pretty well-known blogger in the UK. And I was like, yeah, sure. What is it? She said, I had a child during the pandemic. And he used to always go write in a coffee shop. It felt like one of those like writer in a cafe in Paris kind of things. And it always inspired me. I can't really go with an 18-month-old in the coffee shop, be the cool writer anymore. Any chance you could put up a playlist that's like a coffee shop? And I was like, sure. Found some dude in Vienna, Austria that had recorded his local coffee shop. I have no idea what inspired him to do it, but it's an hour or two of just all the little espresso, like shh, and the little plates clattering and like the murmur of people. It became incredibly popular, especially with the writers in our platform. The three big cohorts we have are developers, engineers, designers, graphic designers, UI, UX designers, and writers, bloggers, authors, like that sort of thing. And I tell you this story to tell you, as much as I did all like the reading of the smart people who've come before, there was some learning on the job stuff where it's like, wow, okay, rain really helps. Coffee shop. Like, it's been cool learning. You have to acknowledge that you don't know in order to keep learning.
Wow. Fascinating.
Long story. Sorry,
I would have never guessed. But as I'm thinking about it, as you're describing it, I can see how that works because we have a lot of rain where I live. We're on the coast. So that is my batter down, get it done right now. And
should you ever move to LA and you miss the rain, you're like, there's a rain playlist for you.
There's a rain soundtrack. Yeah, I love that. The coffee shop is comforting because you have connection, but you don't have to be super involved. So your brain can take in that belonging, that sense of community. You're with people, but you don't have to get distracted by it. So I can see that working
totally
really
with
well.
You. And I didn't see that one coming, but I'll say the funny thing is, I can't write well. I can write a memo, I can write an email, but I'm not the person who's going to write a screenplay and be like, oh, Petra, please read my screenplay. Read my novel, not I. However, when I was, a development executive at Fox and Dreamers, you have a ton of incoming reading because everyone's submitting to spec screenplays, books, pitches, video game synopses. So you spend a lot of your time outside of the office reading, which you can do at home, which I often did. But I also, there's a coffee shop on Sunset Boulevard in West Hollywood, like just west of Fairfax, across from the Directors Guild. It was a Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf. I think now it's a Starbucks. I think they bought them out. And it was known as a writer's clubhouse. Very informal thing where you would go there. I would go there not as a writer, but just because like nights and weekends, it would be fun to sit there with my stack of scripts and read. And you look around the room and everybody's on their MacBooks, like trying to write the next great movie, the next great TV pilot, this sort of thing. And it's the whole spectrum. There's the weird guy in the corner who's been coming here for 25 years. he's writing scripts, $1.5 million a script, and doesn't really talk to anybody, but you're like, oh my God, that's in the corner. Because it's his habit from when he was like 25 years old. And then you have two girls next to you at the communal table that just got off the bus from Iowa. And they're like trying to figure out their first TV pilot. And everybody in the room is trying to do something great, trying to create something. And that there is something, like you said about that, I'm part of something feeling.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. Maybe tell our listeners, I feel this is a good place for that, how we can work with the flow state in an intentional way. How can we, outside of listening to tracks that put us there or music that puts us into that flow state, are there other things we can do to intentionally come into this state?
Absolutely. And let's acknowledge that research shows you don't just say, I'm in flow and you're in flow. It takes 15 to 23 minutes for your brain to drop into it. And if you get interrupted, takes you another 15 to 23 to get back, which is a big one, which means you're not doing this in between Zoom meetings. You're like, oh, I've got Petra at 1, and then I have 15 minutes before my next Zoom, I'll get into flow. No, you actually have to treat it as a practice, which is I'm going to time block, a very important concept. I think everyone listens to your pod is super smart, knows about this stuff, right? So I'm going to time block because I know that in flow, I'm going to be able to do some things that I will either do at a higher quality that will move my life, my team's, or my company's life forward, or I'll do it more quickly and give myself time later for something else that I need to do. That means saying stuff like, I'm going to go into my calendar and like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm going to block 8 to 10 a.m. So no one sets meetings with me. No one expects me to respond to their Slacks immediately or their WhatsApps or whatever. And it's just, this is sacred time where I do the stuff that actually catapults me forward, as opposed to what Cal would say, all the shallow work. It's like, I returned your emails, I returned Slack. Like no billion-dollar company became a billion-dollar company because people in the stand-up were like, inbox 0, got all those nasty emails returned. They became a billion-dollar company because someone walks in the staff meeting and goes, yesterday, I actually took 2 hours and unplugged my phone. I looked out the window and I thought about what our competitor just launched. And there's a flaw in it. We can exploit that. We could build this. And everyone in the meeting, their heads kind of pivot over and they're like, oh my God, we should leave the meeting now and go do that before someone else figures it out. You know what I mean? That's how you win. And that comes from deep work. That comes from having a flow practice. So time blocking, to be very prescriptive, which I know you love, time blocking. Treat it like a meeting with yourself. Don't just treat it as I'll fit it in between things, because you won't, period. I can tell you this. I have the same problem. You just won't. And you'll never do deep work and you'll just keep treading water year after year. So that's number one. Another part of it is, yes, when you get into it, you want to stay in it, right? So it means acknowledge what are your distractions. Like I'm super clear with myself. When I'm coding and I get frustrated and the build fails again, or I'm like writing a blog post for our blog and I read the first 2 paragraphs and think, I know I'm going to rewrite them. And I get frustrated without thinking. I've been so dopamine trained. Without thinking, my hand will reach my phone and just tell me, let's take a minute and just check WhatsApps. Let's see what Eric's doing in Paris because we're going to go visit him. Let me just quickly look at the news or check my, it's never a minute. It's half an hour. And when you feel the pain of that half hour, you feel it at 6 p.m. when you're like, where did the day go? And that I think is pernicious, because if you look at the $1 trillion market cap, if you look at the top companies in the stock market, their business model is steal your life, period. Full stop. That is how they make their money. And 10 years ago, I don't know if you guys saw this in Europe, but here, 10 years ago, Mark Zuckerberg would be called to Congress to testify about some awful thing they'd done. And he would laugh and go, oh, Senator, Facebook's just here for grandmothers to show you see their videos of grandkids. That's what we do here. That era is over. There is no shame that they feel. You listen to the shareholder calls and they are very clear. Listen, we have a lot of money. We are paying the top engineers, designers, behavioral economists, casino game designers come up with these techniques to steal everyone's lives. And by the way, we call that shareholder value. And we're going to use these new techniques next quarter to steal more, because Mark's not going to buy another $450 million yacht because you actually did anything with your life. He is going to buy that yacht because you turned 80 and you were sitting on the sofa, scrolling and double tapping, talking about how you could have written that book. You could have started that restaurant. You could have written that app. And he doesn't care. And that, I think, is criminal. It's happening in front of our faces. And it means if you don't want to go to the graveyard with your great idea still inside you, then you need to find a way to deal with those distractions, which is as simple as like with Sukha. When you start a session, we just bring a QR code up. You can tap it with your phone, put your phone down. If you touch your phone while you're in a flow session, your little smart assistant just says, hey, Steven, I see you on your phone. Is that helping you? Because we want to treat you as an adult. We don't block your phone. We don't lock it. We don't brick it. It's just that thing about having a friend sit next to you. It's like, hey, man, like, who do you want to be? And you're like, I want to be the guy at 3 o'clock that's playing with my kids. I don't want to be the guy at 6 o'clock that's, man, where did the day go? I suck. And it's that kind of thinking. So that's another component of it. There's another component, which is understanding your chronotype, which I think some of your audience are probably familiar with. It's the concept that there are times of day you're better at certain kinds of things. I ran into this first when I was really young, just getting into film. And there was a very established writer, Ron Bass, who had written Rain Man, My Best Friend's Wedding, all this stuff. And he was famous, maybe infamous, for not talking to his family in the morning. I'm not going to be the dad who's, good morning, who wants pancakes? Who needs a ride to school? He said, when I start talking to you, I can no longer hear my characters' voices in my head. And I get paid $1 to $2 million a script to write those voices that Julia Roberts says yes to, that Dustin Hoffman, Tom Cruise, that it is that caliber of character writing that I do. And he was very aware. In the afternoon, he was great with collaborative meetings with other writers, with studio notes meetings, with talking to his agent, whatever. But from 5, 6 in the morning to 10 in the morning. And of course, his family's, Dad, you're making $2 million a script. We can make pancakes. We're good. We got you, Dad. But I remember hearing that. I was like, wow, that dude is like regimented. He's like self-aware. But I'm telling you, as you go forward in your life, you can either learn your chronotype and say, oh, I should be doing X at this time of day, or you can just stumble through and randomly let the waves push you around through your daily schedule. And it's easy to figure out. If you take a grid, just draw a grid of Monday through Friday, morning and afternoon, very simple, and jot down for a week or 2 weeks, what did you do? Oh, I worked on blog posts Tuesday afternoon. How did you feel? Smiley face. What did you do Thursday morning? Thursday morning, wrote new feature. How do you feel? Not so great. I'm telling you, you'd be surprised. You look at that after a week or two and you go, oh my God, I should always be writing my original stuff in the mornings. I should always be doing this after lunch when I'm carbo foggy. It's astounding. And you just have to take like a little tiny bit of energy to go, oh, this is how I should structure my day. That was a long speech. Be quiet now and give it back to you.
Thank you for taking us through all of that. I feel this is so helpful for our listeners as well, because these are things we can implement in our lives right away, and we can actually explore and work with flow states. Thanks for sharing that. I don't mind the long answer at all. So much value there.
No one else could see you nap in the middle of that, but I saw you nap. It's okay. It's okay. We're in a fight.
Oh,
That's
man.
okay.
Yeah. I do stay with my podcast guests. Yeah, thank you for that. And I feel that our listeners might be really curious right now as to how they can access this amazing Sukha company app that you touched on through our episode, and how they can work with everything. So tell us a little bit about where we can reach you, connect with you, find you.
Let me say 2 things. Number one, nothing to do with the company that I run. But if someone listened to this and has a question like, who is that Hungarian guy? Or who's Cal Newport? Whatever, you're welcome to email me. My email address is very public. It's Steven, Steven, at thesukha, THESUKHA.co for company. I will not send you back the story of my life. I'm busy. You're busy. But if you ask me a question like, hey, what should I read by Cal Newport? I'll send you back a link. Here's something you can learn about time blocking or something. And then the other part is if someone does want to experiment with a flow state, think of something you actually need to do. I need to spend an hour or two writing my chapter of my book, working on my business plan, designing this thing, whatever it is. Find that thing. And you can go to thesukha, THESUKHA.co. It's free for 3 days. Do a session of an hour, 2 hours. Like you can't get into flow in 15 minutes. You'll just be like, I don't get it. It's just like music. But find something you want to do and tell me if after that 2 hours, you don't feel like, wow, I just got off a jet plane. That was amazing. I'll be surprised. And it's free for 30 days. So even if you don't like it, you don't have to pay.
Amazing. I want to ask you one more thing before we wrap up, because you mentioned you have a newborn. I feel a lot of listeners can relate to the fact that they get very distracted because there are kids drop-offs to school, picking them up in the afternoon, extracurricular things, hockey on the weekend or whatever it is. How do you make this flow state kind of align with a busy schedule like that? Some people might be panicking right now saying, I can't block out 2 hours of my day. How do you make that work?
Over the past 5-6 years, I've spoken hundreds of times, live, in person, recorded, podcasts, whatever, right? YouTube videos. I love talking about flow states. I love talking about how to do something with your life. That leads to a lot of people approaching you saying, like, even in an informal way, like I don't charge to coach people, but if someone asks me like, hey, can you help me with this? I'll generally try and help them with that. I get it now. All of the parents with whom I've spoken, where they describe to me like, oh man, time is at a premium. Like, I used to be able to screw around more and like it's be in Reddit or watch that YouTube video. And now my kid's napping. I have 60 minutes. How do I use this really well? The last 3 months, Petra, I understand in a way that's not abstract. My life has changed and like moments are precious. And I will close with a story, an anecdote. Last spring in our group chat in Suka, there is a sense of community, like other people. You can post what you're working on. People ask you, right? A guy posted, this guy Roy King posted that he'd finished his dissertation. And some other people commented like, hey man, that's a pretty big little like thing you just casually dropped in there. Now I wrote my little thing. He's finished his dissertation. He's, oh yeah, I am a assistant vice principal at a high school in Missouri. And I've been working on my PhD in engineering. And I also am a dad and a husband. So I find that like in between like high school day job, like being a good husband, I get about 60 minutes a night and a little bit of time on weekends. And I've been using Suka to make the best use of that because it is precious. And he said, I don't know how I could have done this otherwise because you get so distracted. He said, but don't get excited because I turned in the dissertation, but I still have to defend it. You have to go in front of the panel and do whatever for PhD. So he said, that's like a couple weeks from Monday. And I'll tell you something that I really love. This keeps me going on the days when I'm like dragging. That weekend going into that Monday, people around the world, and again, I run the platform. I know they don't know him. Someone in Japan, people in Spain, South America, they post that weekend, hey, Roy, we're pulling for you, man. Good luck on Monday. Let us know how it goes. Like stuff where I was like, they don't know him, but they feel like somehow we're in this together. And Monday, he didn't post anything. Finally, someone in the group chat posted, hey, anybody talk to Roy? Did things go okay? You know, what happened? And no one had heard anything. Tuesday morning, Roy logged in and posted, you may now call me Dr. King. And people went nuts. That is why I do what I do. That right there.
So powerful. And that sense of belonging and community that we touched on. That's what we want, right?
Yeah, we're not alone. Even if you work remotely, which I do. I run my company from my house. But it's nice to every morning log in and see who's chatting about what. They kind of becoming like your people.
Yeah. And everybody can hopefully find those 60 minutes where they can do when it becomes precious.
Yeah, you really do. Yeah, I know. Luckily, I have a great wife and she's a big position at a bank here in the United States, but she has made an effort to say, okay, how do we give each other those little windows of time? You need to go work on Suka. Here's 2 hours Friday morning when I can do it. And then can you make sure that I have time on Thursday afternoon? I've got stuff. And that's the only way we make it work.
Yeah. Wow. So empowering.
It's not like the single days.
Yeah. Life changes and we evolve, and there are different seasons of our life that come along as we transition. We have children and different kind of things. So yeah, thank you for sharing all of that. And
thank you for having me. I hope this was fun for people listening. I hope whoever's vacuuming or driving in the car, they're like, oh, that
doing
was
their
30
thing.
minutes. Okay.
Yes. They can now find those 60 minutes to, after all of that, still come back to their dreams, their goals, whatever it is that they want to work on for those 60 minutes. So absolutely amazing. And we'll be linking to your offerings in the show notes as well. So we'll make sure people know where to find you and how to connect with the Suka company. And thank you, Stephen, for being here today and sharing this space with me and sharing your wisdom. I feel so much little nuggets, wisdom, everything pouring out for our listeners. Thank you.
Fun thoughts to
truly
chew over.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Petra. Thank you to everyone who listened.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in today, and take care of yourselves and be well. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen in. If you enjoy the Jōrni Podcast, please support us by subscribing, sharing on social media, and leaving us a review. We appreciate you. And you can find more of The Jōrni on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and our website, thejorni.com. Sending you love and courage, and see you next time.